Hi, everybody. Today on the Latched Mama podcast, we have one of my favorite people in the world, my partner in life and partner in business, Eric. He's here to talk about kind of how we've gotten here and the history of Latched Mama and kind of our journey to this point. So enjoy it.
You're listening to the Latched Mama podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Wirt, business owner and tired mom of 5. Join us each week as we talk about pregnancy, nursing, parenting, and all things motherhood.
I'm really excited about today. It kind of feels like a date, which is really exciting for me. I am sitting here with my buddy, my partner in crime, my partner in life, my partner in business, my partner in vomiting kids in the middle of the night, Eric Wirt. Hi.
Hi.
We are going to talk about kind of the history of Latched Mama, maybe the history of us a little bit. I don't know. That could be cool. Could kind of feel like a date then. I don't know. We're going to talk about how we kind of gotten here, who we are, and all that jazz and what we brought to the table. And honestly, I keep joking that this feels like a date, but it's actually really nice. Other than the fact that Kennedy, our videographer / podcast producer, is sitting with us, but this is nice. Hi, honey.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
We like to say that we're both very introverted, but Eric's probably a little bit more introverted than me. So this is a little bit out of his comfort zone, but we are here to talk. So where should we start?
I don't know. Where do you want to start?
Do you remember how we started the company? Like what happened? Like the first conversation we ever talked about nursing clothes?
Maybe. I don't know. I remember lots of ideas flying around even prior to landing on nursing clothes.
Yeah, I think I had worked in real estate for, 10 years. And then I knew I wanted to stay at home after I had our first child, Nathan, who will be 8 in April. And I had set a little bit of money aside. I think it was like my last commission check or something. It was sitting in the bank account. And I remember thinking like that was our money to kind of go for it and try something. And in my mind, trying something was starting something that was going to be like a hobby that was going to give me something outside of motherhood to focus on and to feel like I wasn't completely losing a career that had been really important and really special to me. Eric's idea, though, I think was completely different. And we joke about it today is like, I sometimes say, oh, my little Etsy store. And Eric just kind of laughs because I don't think in your mind it was ever going to be that.
No. I think, we talked about some things like that, but you had spent some time not working after the birth of Nathan, and we're going a little bit stir crazy. So we talked about a lot of different things you could do. And I remember you talking about even wanting to go get a part-time job at some point, or you just needed some more interaction with adults. And just childcare and all of a sudden back at work and lack of flexibility, all that was sort of a sticking point, trying to figure out what would work. So we basically decided we were probably gonna have to start our own thing so you could have some flexibility and be doing something you cared about.
Did you always see it? Did you always see it though as big? Like, did you always see it as like something that was going to be like a lemonade stand or like an Amazon? Like, did you, I know of course it's going to land somewhere in the middle at some point, but like, I
wanted to find something that had the potential to be big. Some of the, I remember some of the specific early ideas we batted around. Like one
talked
was
about cloth diapers a little bit.
Yeah, you had talked about a car seat cleaning service.
Oh gosh, somebody needs to jump on that, especially now this season.
Yeah,
yeah. There was somebody out like in California that goes in and cleans car seats and pack and plays and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, but
yeah,
the more the more we explored it, it's you got to buy a truck and you got to be running around all over town, and you need. Yeah, all sorts of.
It's a lot of vomit. We just had 5 kids, and we probably had the same amount of vomit that we would have if we ran a company like that. Oh God, it was a long weekend, guys.
So it just, Yeah, I mean, that seemed very capital intensive and very, if you're driving a truck around cleaning people's car seats, we still had the same issue. What do we do with Nathan during that time? And Alex, I think, was probably cooking.
Yeah.
And then, eventually I think we talked about, well, is there a product we can make and sell? And Nathan
liked to eat from the boob.
He liked to scream.
Oh,
and
gosh,
so we had certainly on car rides, the only way to keep him from screaming was white noise. So
yeah, you're right. We did. We talked about that. I think there's been some studies about that recently.
Yep.
Good thing we didn't move in that direction.
Yeah, but we were toying with, could we make something that was easy to clip onto the car seat and sort of, I think that's probably where we first started exploring actually making and selling a product.
Yeah.
Not the product we landed on, but
did clothes ever scare you to the idea of?
No. I mean, I think I knew it would be challenging just because it wasn't like a consumer product that you can just make one of them and they're all the same. That, even for one article of clothing, you're going to have different colors, you're going to have different sizes, and it was going to be much more intense.
Inventory intensive, for sure.
Yeah, but clothes themselves weren't scary.
So I remember, I have so many memories of the early days, especially just kind of designing the clothes and, trying to get them to the point where I knew what I was doing. And we moved quickly away from ordering some wholesale stuff from Asian countries, because in Asia, it wasn't that we wanted to immediately manufacture overseas. It was just in Asia, they have nursing clothes, which just was something that culturally they kind of accept it a little bit more, that it's something that women deserve and need. But I remember those first few samples that came in the mail. And I remember myself looking at them and saying, oh my gosh, how do I get from what this is to something that somebody in the United States would wear? Do you remember that bright yellow? It was like a Big Bird hoodie that went down to my knees and had pink fur inside of it.
I do remember that. Yep.
It was insane. It was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think all those were interesting. I mean, and I always viewed that as experimenting, just to see what was out there, how it worked, what people liked, what people didn't like. But you did order quite a few items from all over the world, and then loaded them up in the back of the minivan, and we're running around to people's houses, letting them try things on and giving you feedback. And
it was really funny. For those of you who don't know, and most of you probably don't, because we don't really do this very often. This is kind of a big deal in terms of talking about us and who we are. But Eric has a pretty strong technical background. And I thought that this was going to be an e-commerce store. I always kind of thought that was something that we would do, and that was the original plan. But then I created this website and nobody was buying anything, but people would buy things out of the back of my minivan, and people would buy things at MommyCon or wherever we went. So that was going to be my new business plan, is that I was going to drive a minivan around and go to people's houses and hold their babies while they tried on clothes. And I was going to load up the minivan and a bunch of clothes and drive all around the country selling them to people. And Eric finally looked at me one day and he was like, Melissa, he was like, can you please just sit down and figure out how many transactions you can possibly have in this certain amount of hours? I think I was driving to Philly. He's like, it was like 5,000 if I checked somebody. It was like $5,000 if I had checked somebody out every 10 minutes or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay. Because that was my goal for the day. And I was like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to interact with customers every 10 minutes and do this, and we don't have enough staff. So I remember driving up there and thinking, Eric might be right, but how do I get this website to work? And, I think we learn a lot of things in motherhood and growing up and life in general. And one of the biggest things that this company has taught me is that you have to ask for help. And I had somebody who was so knowledgeable and so great, who I was, building this life with. And I finally looked at him one night and I had this, what I thought was this gorgeous website and had these beautiful pictures and these soft colors. And I said, but honey, we're not selling anything. Like, I have to go away every weekend and sell these clothes. And he looked at me and he's like, it's because your website sucks, honey. I remember just kind of looking at him and going, I was crushed, of course, immediately, because I was like, no, but it's pretty. And, and it speaks to me, and it's what I want. And he's like, have you looked at eBay? Have you looked at Amazon? Like, they're not pretty. Like Craigslist, like none of them are pretty, but they get the job done. Your website doesn't get the job done, honey. And it was one of those first moments, I think, where I realized that if this was going to happen, that we were going to have to do it together, and that he was going to have to play a pretty major role in it, and that somehow we were going to have to learn how to have these conversations while we still were married and parenting and, raising a family together. And it was hard. I learned that I needed probably a little bit tougher skin. He needed to probably soften things a little bit sometimes. And we needed to figure out how we were going to work together, which is still, a work in progress, but I feel like 5 years later, we're handling it probably a little bit better.
I think we had that conversation actually while we were in the car driving to see my dad, which was a good hour and a half away.
Yeah.
So you were kind of stuck there.
my website intervention, hey, you know what? We've invested some money in some clothes at this point, and you've spent a lot of time away from your family trying to sell said clothes, and we're gonna fix this, and we're gonna figure it out. So that was probably the fall prior to that first shipment of hoodies coming for the holidays, right?
Late summer, fall, something like that. We, I think your Philly trip
was like in October or November or something, maybe.
It might have been the summer. I don't know. We could go back
It
and
all-
look. But
it all kind of runs
I
together.
think somewhere in there you would sort of, you were talking about you wanted to upgrade from the minivan. It was time to get a bigger,
bus,
like a bus,
which we
or
do
an
have
RV.
now. Stay tuned, guys. We finally got a bus, and I'm really excited.
But that just seemed like more of the same, but even more expensive.
Yeah. So then, like, our first set of like designed by me clothes came, and we had kind of set up the dining room, and was putting it all away, and I opened one up, and I was super excited. It was our first tagged clothing, and it's kind of one of these memories where I put the hoodie on, and the hoodie was like where I wanted to be, but the issue is that we started kind of over the summer and over the fall, so it wasn't really hoodie season. So I had dabbled in like a tank top and a dress, but these hoodies I knew were going to be like life-changing. It was going to be the first time, like in the United States, that a mom had seen something that she could breastfeed in, that she didn't have to get cold and she didn't have to, remove layers and stuff. And I knew that if we did it right, it was going to be hopefully a game changer. And I pulled it on, and I walked into the kitchen, and I raised my hands up kind of like a robot. And I just remember these tears coming down my face, because I had no idea that I had to give our manufacturer sleeve measurements. No idea. I didn't know how to design clothes. I had drawn on a piece of paper. We had sent like a picture, but these sleeves, guys, they weren't 3/4 length sleeves. They weren't short sleeves. They definitely were not long sleeves. They were like this terrible in-between length. And I was out of money. Like, I had spent my little chunk that I had put aside. I hadn't asked Eric for any, and I looked at him and I said, we can't sell these. Do you remember what you said to me? You hugged me. You hugged me while you said it, which was nice. So we had gotten somewhere. He looked at me and he's like, you've got to sell these. You don't have any money left. And I remember looking at him and being like, well, our brand's going to tank. And, looking back on it, we didn't have a brand yet. So there was really nothing to tank. And it taught me a really important lesson. I had zero idea what to do other than to be 100% truthful. So I turned to our Facebook page at that point that we had been kind of building the community kind of like as we were waiting for our clothes to come. And I was like, hey guys, if you guys didn't know, I'm just a mom. I don't design clothes. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I made this really cool thing, and I hope you all like it. But keep in mind the sleeves are a little short. And from that point on, I learned that the more honest you are in business and building a brand, and the more I talked to the moms as a mom myself, the better we were going to do. And I think every single one of those hoodies sold. I think we maybe got 2 back. But I got so many emails from people who basically said, hey, you know what? I got my hoodie. You're right. The sleeves are short, but I believe in you and I believe in what you're doing. And it filled my cup unlike anything, probably has. I still save those emails and look back at them because it was so cool. But I do remember that hug you gave me in the kitchen, and it was a little bit of tough love, and it was don't give up. Things don't have to be perfect, but
honesty is definitely the best policy.
Yeah. Do you remember when you introduced me to ShipStation when I was going to the post office?
I do vaguely. You were packaging things up and going to the post office every day and standing in line and basically paying retail shipping prices, and it was getting a little bit time consuming and expensive and stuff. So we figured out a way to improve that process.
Eric's the one who comes from nowhere. He'll be watching and he'll be kind of talking to me about my day, and he'll be like, so there's this thing, there's this piece of software. I'm like, oh God, here he goes again. Because my entire life with Eric has been, oh, there's this piece of software, or I'm going to write this, or I'm going to do that. And he's like, so there's this piece of software where all of your orders can go from the storefront to it. And then it's going to print you labels, but we have to buy some stuff. And every time he'd say that, I would cringe, or he'd be like, I think it's really time. I mean, he's always been the one that's intervened. It's time for an employee, or it's time for us to go look at a warehouse space, and these are such terrifying things for me because I'm kind of in the day to day of it. But his day when he told me that there was a piece of software and I could print my labels from home and I could put them in the mailbox, it was for sure life changing. You want to talk about product shots?
We can. I think all those things, backing up, you mentioned setting up the dining room. I think many of the things you just mentioned are some of the fun memories of, even you mentioned, we set up the dining room, but really we got in the car and we drove to every home goods store in there. Every Lowe's, every Home Depot, every Garden Ridge, we were all over the place trying to find something inexpensive that we could get 100 of them that would fit in the dining room, that we could put your clothes or necklaces or whatever it was at the time on. And same thing when it was time to get an office and move out of the dining room. I don't know how many weekends we spent driving around to every piece of real estate that was available for rent or lease within a 3 to 5 mile radius from our house. And
I guess we only had 2 kids at that point, so it was a little bit easier to throw them in the car and go explore and do things. But I feel like every single decision at that point, they still are, but it was so thought through in terms of value and how to make sure that we were spending enough to grow, but not spending too much that it was going to tank us, because we knew we wanted to self-fund it. So we knew everything was kind of going back into the business. I was thinking the other night, knowing that we were going to get together to do this, and I was thinking about how everything in life kind of leads you, of course, to where you are. And, there's all sorts of quotes about, how every little step is a building block. And, entrepreneurship is such a scary thing. But for me, it was a little bit easier because I had come right out of college and I had landed my first job I interviewed for. I still don't know how I got the job. I think I went the night before and got a suit from Potomac Mills and didn't wear heels and sat on this panel with all of these fancy people. But I sold real estate and I didn't know what I was doing, and it was this 10-year thing. But my first 3 months out of college, I was on salary. And then at that point, they kind of pull the rug out from underneath you and you're on 100% commission. So I was on 100% commission from the time I graduated college, basically, until I left to have Nathan. So I never had a paid vacation day. I never had a guaranteed paycheck. But I also learned to look at each month as each month. So if I had a good month, it was great and fantastic. But the first day of the next month started my entire life and my entire like income over again, which was a really kind of a unique thing. So rolling into this, it felt super similar in the sense that, you know, hey, if we didn't have a good month, I didn't get paid. I mean, I don't think I got paid for the first 4 years, 4 years, 4 years. Yeah. Everything just stayed in the business, which was really cool. But at the beginning, like if we hadn't started that process long before we had Nathan, in the sense that my income kind of didn't matter and we just lived on yours, because Eric still has a full-time job through all of this because he's a rock star and a hero and can support our family. But, you know, I don't think we would be here. You know, if we hadn't been so disciplined leading up to it and not really needing to pull anything out, we wouldn't have been probably able to make that first jump into the small warehouse or, you know, from there. So it's just interesting how you look back on your life and actually get thankful for the things that you learned that you didn't even realize you were learning. That and the customer service skills. You know, I mean, of course I learned how to sell things when I was selling real estate, but just managing the sales from, it was new construction. So managing the sales from the sale through the closing taught me so much about the fact that it matters. People's life circumstances matter, whether you're selling them a house or whether you're selling them nursing wear. And I think that building a trusting customer base and a brand is so important in the sense that, you know, you're going to mess up. Your sleeves are going to be too short on your hoodie sometimes, or you're going to oversell an item. But if you really connect with your customers and tell them the truth and, you know, make it right, it all works out in the end, which I think was such a backbone in the early days when things maybe weren't perfect. Can you think of any like other mistakes?
I mean, we make mistakes every day.
But like any major ones that you were like, holy cow, Melissa, like, what are we going to do? I don't think were there.
I'm sure there were, but not off the top of my head. But I think it was all, I mean, it still is, but especially in the early days, exercise in frugal, creative problem solving.
Yeah. So our original product shot setup was in our family room, and we hung poster board on the wall, I think, and then we had fish tank lights hanging vertically from like was it a tripod or was it?
Mm-hmm. But just on like little pieces of chain.
Yeah. So we hung them on chain, completely unprotected, like fluorescent, huge, how like they're 4 feet long or something. Mm-hmm. Fish tank lights.
Well, I mean, they were like these. They were fluorescent ceiling lights.
So they would live in the garage when they weren't inside the family room. But if you think about this, for some reason we never got, okay, because Eric worked all day. So by the time we got around to doing product shots, it was like after dinner. So we had a 2-year-old and Alex was probably mobile at that point, all the way through after Caroline was born. Because we were doing product shots ourselves up until, a year and a half ago?
Something like that.
We would do them in the evenings, and we would do them in the family room. And it was literally, to this day, it was, I look back on it and I don't know how we survived it. I don't know how I survived it. Like, I would somehow have to look camera enough ready to try and sell something while managing 2 kids, try and steam the clothes, and then Eric had to somehow take the pictures without the kids in them, and then he would sit up all night and hand trace them, hand cut them out, which is why my hair was back in the majority of them in the beginning, which is why people on the internet called me a boy, which is why I left the internet for a little while, which is why we're back now. Look at this. We all heal and we all move forward. Those nights were literally some of the best memories I have, because I look at you now and I smile and they were great. But I remember, there were times where I had a couple early losses between kids. So I was like miscarrying in some of them. Some of them, the kids were sick. Some of them, Caroline was so hungry on some of them. That's one of my favorite pictures. I was like feeding her.
There are a lot of outtake shots of the kids' heads in them. And
Oh,
and stuff like that. But it was a process every time because we had to move all the furniture out of the corner. We had to put all the stuff on the walls.
we had to clean out underneath the furniture because we had kids. So we had to sweep that and
Yeah.
find the half-eaten peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and sippy cups.
Even just since we were doing it on a shoestring budget and trying to figure it out along the way, we started out, we'll put the camera on a tripod. Well, then every time I touch the camera, of course, everything shakes and it's all wiggly. So figured out how to do remote so that, I didn't have to touch the camera so it wouldn't shake. But even that was problematic because we were trying to keep the kids out of the way and they were running around in the other room and it's still enough to shake the whole house. So
we don't have a big house.
so, it was very hard to get like clear shots when the house is shaking because the boys are running in circles.
And Eric's a little bit of a perfectionist. He has this, don't do it if you're not going to do it perfectly right philosophy in life, which counteracts mine, which is let's just get this shit done, especially at 9:00 at night when the kids need to go to bed. So it actually has worked extremely well in terms of building a brand because I think I push him sometimes and he slows me down sometimes, which is super important. But holy moly, those nights. And then Eric's mom started getting involved in those nights, which bless her heart. Thank you. I'm sure she's going to listen to this. I adore her. But it was almost like there was just this other person, and then she's trying to keep the kids quiet, and then guys, it was quite the adventure.
You'll have to look through some of the outtakes at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Every shot we took, we still have somewhere, and
yeah, good. I'm sure we do. Eric saves everything. So. Any other memories? So we went from the dining room to a small little.
We went from the dining room to the living room next to it, into the family room, into the hallway, blocking the stairs, to pretty much our whole downstairs.
We got like this first shipment. The UPS man came with our heavy hoodie, like our Latched Mama heavy hoodie, and I mean, I didn't know how many boxes it was going to be, and he left them in the hallway and there was no way to get to the kitchen. Like there was zero way to get from the front door of the house to the kitchen because the living room was blocked with inventory and then the hallway was blocked with inventory. So everybody was climbing over it, including like the kids and the dog would get trapped and bark at the boxes. It was quite the adventure, but it was awesome fort building for the kids. They loved it.
We do have some good pictures of that too.
So Eric decided that it was time to encourage me to find a spot. We found like 600 square feet for like $650 a month, which sounds glorious right now.
Generous because that was like that included a closet in the back and this little kitchenette we didn't need and the bathroom. I mean, it was probably 400 square feet of usable space.
Was there a kitchenette in that one?
It had a sink and stuff in the back. Yeah.
So we shared it with this guy, and I don't know if he's still alive. He was pretty old at the time, but I don't even know. What did he make? It was like terrifying to go back there. It was like not drugs, drums of like chemicals.
He made some sort of industrial.
He did something. So he had the back half of the unit. So he had like the access to the delivery door and stuff like that. So all of our deliveries had to come through the front door and they couldn't always fit. And sometimes we were unpacking boxes outside in the front. It was a little bit of a nightmare, but I mean,
it was probably good practice because we continued that for quite some time and in other warehouses too, just as we outgrew them.
Yeah. I remember one of our friends at the time owned a big fabric company in town, and she asked me what I was doing one night, and I was like, I said, we've got to unpack boxes before, we lose the daylight. I was like, it's not going to happen though. We're going to have to come park some cars and, get some headlamps out. And she looked at me as if I was kidding. She's like, don't you guys have people for that? And I was like, yeah. I was like, us. And like the idea that we would ever have like a warehouse team was so far from like my brain at that point. Cause like, I never really see the growth. I'm so into the day to day that I don't see us getting bigger until we actually have taken that step, which I think is important and good. But yeah, at that time, one of my greatest memories in terms of like balancing business and relationship, because Eric and I have continued to have kids throughout this. So our family has grown as the business has grown. And so there was a friend of mine who had cancer, and we had kind of gone through 2 GoFundMes at that point, and the community was tired, and we were kind of done raising money. And I looked at Eric one day and I was like, hey, I really want to do something. And he was like, okay, well, talk to me. And I said, well, I really want to do like a consignment sale and then like open the warehouse. And he looked at me and he said, hold on. Come here, sweet girl. Oh, baby girl. Are you tired? He said, well, talk to me about what you want to do. And I said, well, the community is pretty tapped out right now, but I do know that but I do know that, moms have stuff, you know. I said, so let's have this consignment sale. And he looked at me and he said, how much do you want to raise? And I threw like a number out there, and he said, can you please just write a check? And I said to him, I was like, no. I said, because half of this is to get the community involved and da-da-da. And he's like, Melissa, just write a check. And at the time, how much I wanted to donate versus how much we were going to raise, it seemed like a lot of money. And I said, no. I said, I'm going to do this. And he said, okay. So I didn't think through it all the way. The people who were supposed to support me and help me kind of didn't come through. And all of a sudden, I just had all of these people dropping off stuff, junk, old clothes, baby gear to the warehouse, and it was taking up like you couldn't walk in the warehouse door. And he said, and he would check in with me. I'd come home and he's like, how's that consignment stuff going? And he hadn't been to the warehouse, so he hadn't seen that I was completely underwater. My mom came into town, thankfully, helped me go through it. I realized I was going to need a tent and I was going to need tables. And like, I realized that I was going to basically be spending as much as I wanted to donate. And so I realized he was right. But I was too far into it at that point. And so we had just hired new employees at Latched Mama. So we ended up pulling off the sale. And for a lot of reasons that we can talk about later, it was literally one of the best weekends in Latched Mama history for a couple of reasons. But by the end of the weekend, I had put zero thought into who was going to help me clean up. And my employees had all worked overtime that weekend. Nobody from the community showed up. I was beat down. I was tired. I was a little pissed at myself for not just writing the check. And so it was 4:00 in the afternoon. The tent guys were coming in the morning, and I had tables and tables and tables of stuff that needed to be packed up and donated. And I called Eric and I said, hey, I need you. And there was this long pause, and you could hear just the kids in the background. We had a 6-month-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old at the time. And he's like, Melissa, it's like 4:00 on a Sunday. Like, what do you need? And I was like, I need you to come up here and help me. And he pulled around to the back of the warehouse. And guys, I mean, I'm saying that there was probably an entire box truckload of stuff that had to be packed up and taken away. And I was waiting for him to do kind of the same website comment that he had made with your website sucks, or this was a stupid idea or whatever. And he looked at me, and the kids come running out of the car, and to the kids it looked like Disneyland because there was toys everywhere. And he looked at me and he's like, what do you need? You gave me a hug. And there was never a moment where you said, I told you so. You gave me a hug. And together as a family, we packed up everything. I think we were out there until like 9:30. We had Panera for dinner. What made it amazing was the fact that Lindy came and shopped that weekend. So I got what I believe is one of the best gifts Latched Mom has ever gotten, in the sense that she's the perfect designer for us, and she's a great friend and a great mom. And then Nathan got Crocky. So
Alex got Gerald.
Alex got Gerald, this ginormous orangutan that they torment their baby brother Benjamin with. But Nathan got this 5-foot-long stuffed alligator that goes everywhere with him. But he does say it's his best friend. So Lindy, Gerald, and Crocky were the survivors. But anyways, it was one of those moments that I will honestly never forget. Like I get all teary thinking about it, because it was this moment where I had tried to do something so good. It had completely backfired. It ended up, I think we donated $2,500. I think it probably ended up costing us $5,000. It was a nightmare, but he supported me through it, and it was cool. It was a good moment where, we're slowly learning like when he needs to be my partner and when he needs to be more business oriented. Yeah, because I have some weaknesses.
I think we all do.
What do you think you bring to the table business wise?
I think I have been fortunate to have a fair amount of exposure and experience all the way since I first starting my own businesses basically as a teenager. And so I don't know. I think probably basically another life at this point, over 20 years ago. But I had the opportunity to see the insides of thousands of businesses in various capacities. And I think, like you said, you don't always realize what you're learning until later when you call upon it. But that probably just has helped, I don't know, come up with ideas from being able to draw on the experience of seeing how so many other businesses operate, or at least aspects of that.
Yeah. Are you proud of what we've created so far?
Sure. But I think you get on me sometimes because I do have a tendency to look forward and not necessarily dwell on the successes right now. So I think that's probably another thing we balance each other out on. So yes, I'm proud, but always looking forward to continuing to push into new and more things.
I remember like we were, 16 months in, and we had reached our first million in sales. And I went and I got a tattoo of the Latched Mama heart on my ankle. It's small. It's cute. And I remember coming home and being like, hey, look. And he was like, well, why'd you get that? And I was like, because we've reached this huge milestone. I said, only 1% of women-owned companies do it. And he's like, well, what are you going to do at like other bigger numbers, like as we grow? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I said, I'm good here. And he was like, yeah, no, And it was like this, are you an idiot? Like, why are we celebrating this milestone? Like, this doesn't mean anything. Like, we're still, pinching pennies everywhere we can. And I was like, because I'm proud of it, and this is cool, and it's a big number. And it was just Eric in a nutshell. Like, we don't lift our heads up. We don't, they're constantly down. I was thinking the other day about like our biggest Latched Mama fights, like when I've cried, and I was thinking about the Shark Tank drama, which was, I think, one of our biggest disagreements. We had received an email about, very, very early on. And I was all about pursuing it. And I was like, we're gonna go on Shark Tank. I'm like, we're gonna get on there, and it's gonna be amazing, and it's gonna be great, and it's gonna be brand awareness. And Eric was like, no. And I was like, what do you mean no? He's like, this is one of those non-negotiables in our marriage, is like reality TV is a non-negotiable. Like, you're not going on Shark Tank. And I don't like to say he's right very often, but he's been right a few times. And it was interesting, and like, it made me very, very angry. And I didn't know how to quite communicate to him that it was something that I wanted. So we sat down and we talked about, why I wanted it, and did we really want an investor, and like, let's actually boil it down and take it away from TV. Like, could we even have a boss right now? And the answer was no, because we were building our family, and we had zero idea what we wanted from the brand and the company. And then we slowly watched other people from the space, like the mom space, go on. And the creator of Easy Peasy went on, and from what I've learned in the interaction that I've had kind of outside of Latched Mama, she's badass. She did a very similar thing to what we did in terms of creating something and growing a brand. And she got on there, and her edit was terrible. She looked like she was this pantsless wearing idiot, where I knew she wasn't. So he had such a good it was one of those things where I definitely can look at him right now and say you were absolutely right.
I think there were some other folks in the space who, I don't remember if they got investments or not, honestly, but several of them aren't around anymore. I mean, even just the exposure was too much for them at that time.
Yeah.
And I
like the
think
Oprah
same with us.
effect.
You've got to manage your growth carefully, because too much too fast can cause everything to break and fall apart.
Yeah. I feel like for the longest time we were growing so rapidly that it was like riding this runaway horse that we were trying to pull the reins back on, and we were trying to make sure that, I wasn't losing my mind as I was also raising kids, and, we were able to keep our systems in check and, really make sure that anything that we were creating system-wise was lasting, which I feel like we're at a pretty good space right now, probably because we're just kind of treading water at the moment. But, it's good. It's been a good, I don't know, 5 years of craziness. Like, it's interesting. Somebody asked me the other day, like, whether I would have started this company if I had known, like, I'd be here. Like, here meaning, like, at work every day, my kids, with other people, not me. Like, I'm definitely not a stay-at-home mom anymore. And I don't know, it's an interesting question. I don't think we would have 5 kids. Probably not. Yeah.
You mean if we hadn't started?
If we hadn't started this, we probably wouldn't have the means to have 5 kids, which, what's wrong? So, I don't know.
Just got to go with the flow.
Okay. You have anything else you want to add?
To what?
To life? To Latched Mama? Anything you want to say about me? Say anything sweet, kind? This is your chance. This is like a date night right now. You don't have anybody
I'll save
crying?
those for off air.
Oh. Okay. I like that. All right. Well, it's Melissa and Eric signing off. Latched Mama headquarters. Thanks for listening.